Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of the show. Here today, we've got a very special guest from Styx, drummer extraordinaire Todd Sucherman. Todd, welcome to the show. Good to see you.
Likewise, thanks for having me, Peter.
I love all the stuff behind you. Wow, that's a lot of drum gear you got.
Well, it's my drum studio that turned into a recording studio, and now it's a film studio as well. So, in this day and age, you have to do what you have to do. But yeah, this is where I work.
Very cool. Very cool. So I guess to kind of start us all off here today. So I think we can all agree that 2020 has been a really weird year, right? For everybody.
Awesome.
And yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Also,
so you guys normally each and every year do a lot of touring. You're very active on the touring circuit. So at the beginning of 2020, what were Styx's plans going into the new year and into the spring and summer months? And how has that all been affected? And have you kind of retooled everything in hopefully going into a new year where things will be a little better?
how much time do you have, Peter?
I got all the time you want.
All right. Well, yeah, obviously everything was, you know, slammed to a grinding halt. We had 90 shows, whatever, on the books to do, and I mean, I'll never forget it. It was March 13th. Well, I'm starting to forget it now. 99.9% sure it was March 13th. I was on a plane from Austin, where I live, to Philadelphia to begin a run on the East Coast. We were set to play The Mission in its entirety at the Beacon Theater.
Yep.
A couple days after that, and everything started. It was Armageddon, the end of the world, and everyone was canceling shows. And I was standing in my kitchen, as about to get in a town car, saying, "Are you sure this is going to happen? Seinfeld just canceled Saturday night at the Beacon. We're there Sunday." And I got a text back saying, "John Brevedo's charity event still taking place tonight at the Beacon. So yes." So I got in the car, about to hop on a plane. "Are you sure this is still happening?" "Yep, yep." So 4 hours on a plane to Philadelphia. I land like 20 text messages like, "Everything's canceled. We got to fly you home. Get your bags and then go to Terminal E," whatever. And I just thought this would have been a lot easier had they told me beforehand. But so I had to fly home, 9 hours in the air that night, and I've been home ever since.
Ever since.
Uh, the,
Yeah.
the plan was to, at that time, before COVID hit, was for me to fly to Nashville, which is where Tommy Shaw's lived for the last 7 or 8 years, um, and do the drum tracks on what will be the next Styx record. But obviously that was not going to happen in April. And long story short, travel. And I said, "Look, I'm 51 with a 6-year-old daughter. Is everyone going to put my daughter through college if I get it and I die?" Silence. So I'm not coming to Nashville was really the answer. And at the same time, a friend of mine told me about this technology called Audio Movers Listen To. While I record here, I don't I don't drive the gear. I really don't know how to do that. I'm a little like that, but I don't. I've always wanted to concentrate on the drums and on music and doing a great job and a great take, and not worrying about, wait, why isn't this working? Why isn't this working? And spending time calling friends for help and having my nose in manuals. I don't have the patience for that. So, long story short, we found technology in Audio Movers Listen To that allows my longtime engineer to drive my studio, screen share style, from his house or any engineer anywhere in the world. Record here. We got on a Zoom call with Tommy and Will Ivankovich, who's producing the record, and they were listening on an invite link in high resolution audio in their studios. So I did the whole record here in June, and I did 17 tracks in 3 days. And so it was really up to the rest of the guys to do their thing whenever they got around to it. And, looking forward to this storm being behind us so we could resume with a new record and with some killer new music.
So new album in the works. Will you release the album in 2021, even if it turns out you can't tour for a good chunk of the year?
I don't know. That's not my decision to make. And whatever I say now could change when we get closer to it. But uh, I think we'll have a better shot at promoting this record if we're out playing it and we're selling it at shows. So my guess would be probably not until the coast is clear.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, it's and that was a decision a lot of bands had to make this year. There were plenty of bands that had a new album ready to go, but because of COVID, they've held off. Hopefully, we get those albums next year. And there were some bands, AC/DC comes to mind, who are like, you know what? I think the world needs some new music from us, right? So let's just get it out there, and we'll see what next year brings, right?
That was a decision I had to make with my record
Yeah,
early
yeah.
on,
Well,
which
that
was
was my next question. So,
done and yeah, I mean it was done and packaged in by around probably the second or third week of February. So when you think about that, um, taking receipt of 2,500 CDs and 300 especially hand signed and numbered 180-gram vinyl editions, and then this pandemic hits. I mean, the notion was to release my record on May 31st, and my wife was in Brian Wilson's band for 12 years, brilliant singer, so she's in the business, and we thought, well, my goodness, we couldn't possibly release new music at a time of such uncertainty where people are going to be getting sick, people are going to be getting dying, people might not be working. This would be a horrible time to go on social media and, hey, buy my record. It sounded, it made my skin crawl. I couldn't do it. And as a couple of weeks went by, I had a few trusted musician friends say to me, well, look, man, you have this thing, it's done. Maybe now is the time to release new music. Maybe people will have the time to sit like never before.
yeah.
Old school, sit with the record in their lap and put on the headphones and take a 40-minute uninterrupted ride. Maybe people need new things. In the Depression, there was vaudeville and whatnot, and people needed entertainment, distraction, whatever you want to call it. And so I kept hearing that idea from various people, and all of a sudden Taylor changed her tune. So I was still unconvinced. So I made a video. I put it out on my socials, asking people, "Look, would you? I have this record that's ready to go. Would you buy new music right now? Would you even be interested in new music right now? Should I go full steam ahead or wait until brighter days?" And the response was a colossally overwhelming 99% yes, release it now. So I moved up the release date to May 2nd, which is my birthday, to give 51 some meaning after 50, which had a lot of meaning. 51 is sort of who cares. So that was a little something for me. And I did that without any infrastructure of like the store website or getting anything together. So that's what really kept my focus the first, 2, 3 months of that pandemic, instead of freaking out, going, what am I going to do? Because I knew this was going to be a long, long, long time, a lot longer than anyone wanted or thought. Um, so that at least kept me focused on something positive. And as the record came out, the response from people about it was just, that was worth doing the whole endeavor. It was such a beautiful thing to get that response, and that the music meant something to some people that wrote me, and how they were dealing with the pandemic or losses in their family or whatever. I mean, it was pretty heavy. So yeah, crazy times.
That's good. Can you tell us a little bit about Last Flight Home? Like, for those who haven't heard it yet, what they can expect musically?
Well, okay. If you like sophisticated pop like Crowded House or Jellyfish or XTC or Elbow or something like that, you might like this record. Um, that being said, it was probably not what most people would assumed that I would do. I'm sure most people thought there would be some sort of drum centric record or some fusion record with a lot of drum solos or whatnot. But to me, music and melody and lyrics have always been the most important part of music for me, beyond drumnastics or Olympic drumming and pyrotechnical virtuosity, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
Um, you know, so that's what I always thought was the hardest thing. Now, how I ended up there was my old buddy J.K. Harrison that I worked with back in Chicago in the old days. Is prolific writer and singer and whatnot. He'd been hounding me for years to do a record with him, with me being the singer, and I thought he was flipping nuts. I thought, like, hey, it's cute that you think that I could do that, but thank you, but no, thank you. But he was tenacious over the years, and he's been living in Los Angeles. So I was set to be in Los Angeles for like 10 days or something like that, and I had a bunch of days off and a bunch of nights off. So I thought, what the hell? Let's get together. At the very least, we'll have a few drinks and a bunch of laughs, and I'll be hanging out with my friend. But it was very clear to me by day two. It kind of frightened me. We wrote the song "Last Flight Home" the second day in like a 20-minute round back and forth with him at the piano, and I'm writing down lyrics about what it's like to be stranded in airports for my whole life. Gee, never thought that would come to an end.
Yeah, right.
You know, so and that song is largely the way it was, and it was just one of those moments where you think, gee, songwriting's fun. You wish it was always that way instead of the incessant 3 hours of this. Okay, no, that sucks. um, so by day two, it was like this yellow brick road was starting to appear before me, and it scared the hell out of me because I thought, holy, me singing? Like, I've always been comfortable singing and with the guys in Styx in the background where I can't possibly screw it up. Sing in tune and you don't screw it up.
Right.
And I'm hidden behind all the wood and metal, right? Not standing up front. But JK believed in me, and we worked at it and we did it. And working with a guy like that who has demos and sketches and charcoal things and some completed demos, or like, let's take this section over here. It's like walking through a museum of beauty, and this is cool. I like this. Let's take this. Oh, that bit will go nice with this. So it was a great head start to work with a guy who has that in his arsenal. And we put out a record. I'm singing, and it's just he and I with just a couple friends as guests, but no like notable star cameos or anything. And the deal was I had to be proud of every note, and I had to believe everything. I had to believe the delivery of every line, or we weren't doing it. So we worked hard, and we recorded from July of 19 to the first week of February. And I kind of didn't believe that I was going to do this. I didn't even tell my mom I was doing a record. My own mother didn't know about this because I thought at some point I was going to chicken out because it really felt like, the proverbial dream where you're standing in front of the class in your underwear. He's singing. It's crazy. But I did it, and I'm fiercely proud of it. And the response I've gotten from it is great. Melody and lyrics, the two hardest things to do. I could play fusion stuff and I could play through kicks all day long, but to write a melody and then get a note telling someone writing me that's their favorite song. Good Lord, that's an unbelievable compliment that means more than, hey, did you phrase those flams in 5 and put a drag in on the E? Like that's a different kind of compliment. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
There
So
you
it
go.
sounds like you're pretty satisfied with the way the album came out. Has that like put any seeds in you for possibly something else down the road, or is this good for now and we'll see what happens then?
Well, it's good for now, and we'll see what happens then. Because I mean, if you had told me 2 years ago that I would have, here it is, that I would have a record right here, that called "Last Flight Home," that that I was the singer, I would have thought you were mentally ill. That happened, and the one thing I like about being a musician is I never know what's going to happen. I never know what I'm going to get involved with, who's going to call, what is going to happen. I like having that open thing, that open-ended thing of what's going to happen. So I think what is definitely going to happen when the storm is behind us is that we're going to have a good 190 Styx shows to make up, and a record with them that I'm fiercely proud of to promote. So that will
So
take center stage.
can you give us any hints of what to expect on the new Styx album?
Hmm. It's really great songs and great songwriting. There's definitely some progressive leanings. There's some beautiful melodies. Some songs lyrically sound like they were written in the middle of the pandemic, but they were written before the pandemic.
Okay.
So I know a lot of people are going to probably read things into the lyric and go, "Oh, they're singing about that." Prophetically, it was written months before that. So, um, but that's really all I can say. It's top to bottom. Um, there's not a dog in the batch.
Good to hear. I can't wait to hear it. So 2017, you guys released The Mission. All right. And that was your first album of all new material in quite some time since Cyclorama, which was 2013.
Uh,
And The Mission was very well received.
2003.
2000, oh, did I say 13? I'm sorry, 2003. Yeah, it's 14 years, right? Long time. Really well received by both the fans and the critics. I think you guys incorporated some of the stuff in your live set. I think that went over really well. Did you guys feel like after all that time, after all those years, and all the positive feedback after The Mission, did you feel like maybe you shouldn't have waited so long to do a new album of all new material, or was it just kind of like the right time to do one after maybe years of feeling like, fans don't want to hear new music anymore by classic bands? Like, what led to you guys saying, all right, it's time to do a new Styx record?
Well, I think from my perspective, the full answer would be this. After Cyclorama came out, which is a record that I thought was really good and we were really proud of it, and it pretty much did nothing because at that time in 2003, no classic rock station would play any new music from a classic band, and the new rock radio stations wouldn't touch a band like Styx.
Right.
So the record came and went largely unnoticed unless you were a fan or had any interest in what the band was doing in 2003. Um, and our next experience with doing a record came from a fluke where we had played Eric Clapton's Crossroads in Dallas, and we had just played Dallas like 2 weeks before. So we were sort of outside the building for one of the big afternoon things. We weren't at the nighttime with John Mayer and whatnot. But they're a large audience, and we decided to do like a 40-minute set of covers and blues things and guitar oriented things, and we ended up doing "I'm the Walrus" by the Beatles. And Lawrence just sang the hell out of it. We had so much fun playing it, so we started doing it, adding it in the set because we friggin' love doing it. And I think we did it well. And like that's really a song that bands don't cover. Like I heard Oasis did it, and I heard Fish did it, but I, I'm sorry, I think no one did it like we did it. It was really something. So, as JY and Tommy were doing radio interviews, I want to say it was Greg Salk, who was maybe at the Loop at that time in Chicago, said, "Oh, send me a recording of I'm the Walrus. I'd play that." And slowly but surely, radio stations started playing a live version that we recorded uh, basically on a laptop, Pro Tools at a live gig, and we had sort of a little radio hit on classic rock radio without a saleable item. So of
Yeah.
course the the record label's like, "Hey boys, how about a record of covers?" So
Why not?
uh, so we banged out a record of covers that was all different songs. The criteria had to be songs that influenced us in our formative years. Um, we did that pretty quickly yet very thoroughly, and that's another really good record for that type of thing. And we ended up having a number 2 radio hit behind the almighty U2 with I'm the Walrus. So that was a little loophole for a band like Styx at that time to get on the radio with something new. They wouldn't play any new compositions, but us covering a classic song like that, boom,
Why
it got
not?
on the radio.
Yep.
And for the next number of years, it was clear that, well, no radio station's gonna touch it. Um, and to spend whatever $250,000 plus to sell 50,000 records or something like that is just, we may as well have a bonfire with, $250,000, which is not my money, by the way, to be dealing with. So um, it was just out of her mind is sort of what's the point. But everyone would still write and everyone would do a little solo record here or there or whatever. And all of a sudden, it just Tommy got the fever, and things started coming to him. You can't control when songs come to you,
Right.
and he started banging them out, and it was like, boom, let's do this. And that record was recorded all analog, no plugins. It's a 2-inch tape. The vinyl sounds like a cream pie in the face. And that was sort of the notion. At first, I didn't get it. I thought, why are we chasing 1978? This band is on fire. Let's capture this. So I kind of dug in my heels a little bit at the whole, sounding like a lost Styx record in a way from 1978. But that is the thing that really resonated with people. And I never read a bad review of that record, which is something that you could never say about any Styx record ever. I never read a bad review, whether it was something from reputable paper or Joe's blog online. And I thought that was really cool that the work spoke for itself, because my goodness, Styx coming out with a concept record about a mission to Mars space travel. The critics that hate the band had to be salivating to rip that to shreds. Just
Then they heard it and they're like, wow, this is actually pretty damn good, right? Yeah.
They couldn't. That's the thing that I really was like, that's awesome. So yeah, that's a record that I'm very, very proud of.
Good. I think all of us fans are very proud of it too. And I think that was in my top 3 releases of the year in 2017 when it came out. It's just, great stuff.
Thanks.
And I got to say, Cyclorama and even Brave New World to an extent, really strong records that I think have really held up over time. I mean, I have been listening to Cyclorama a lot over the last like year or two. I think because it's one of those albums that when it came out, it was on a label that didn't really do any promotion for you, and that's a whole other story, right? And I think you were absolutely right. It came out at a time where a lot of classic rock fans are really not listening to new music by classic rock bands that they love, right? They all they want to hear is the stuff they grew up with that was played on the radio, and I get all that. But you guys released The Mission, and I think a lot of us fell in love with that as a classic sounding Styx record. And then we wanted more. And then I know myself, I was like, well, let me go re-listen to Cyclorama again. I haven't heard it in a while. And I'm like, wow, this is really great too. And there's some killer songs on that record, big time. So I just I think a lot of folks who maybe have the thought process or have said, we haven't heard enough from Styx in recent years. Well, you know what? Go back and listen to those couple albums they just put out, not that, long ago, but in recent years. And all the classic elements are there. The great songs are there, right? And now the fact that you've got something new coming out, hopefully next year, I mean, that's just like icing on the cake. So yeah, I mean, just great stuff. And back to Brave New World. So what was it like for you? Because you didn't work with him for too long, but what was it like working with Dennis DeYoung for those few years?
Well, Dennis and I always got along well, and he was always, nice to me. He, um, when I got in the band, none of those guys ever told me what to play or what not to play or what to do really with anything. I was a Chicago guy, like they were, just a bit younger. So I always was thankful and grateful that they gave me the freedom to feel free to do what I musically saw fit. Um, Obviously there were tensions, and what went on between those guys was their thing. It wasn't mine. I mean, I know what, just by being in the band after he was gone, I'm in this group now, and I've read where things where people said I said all these nasty things, and I never did. I mean, those guys were my bosses. I wasn't a band member. I mean, I was paid to come in and play drums, and my job was to play the songs great, be consistent with the tempos, so they could relax and do their thing. I'm a session guy, really. So I have no misgivings about what my role is in any musical situation. I know what the role of the drummer is supposed to provide. Um, but yeah, clearly there were tensions, and I think that that came out in the recording of Brave New World, because we'd done the tour in '96. When I said goodbye to those guys, I literally thought I'd never see them again. Then they called again. What are you doing in the summer of '97? We went out again. That tour was shortened because Dennis had some plans with a Broadway type show that he'd written. So we only did 40 shows instead of the 72 that we had done previously, and probably spent twice the amount of money on production. Again, their money, not mine. Um, so you know, Dennis lived in South suburban Chicago, and I was living in Los Angeles at that time. I moved to LA. Tommy lived in LA. JY was still is in Chicago still. Um, and we started eh, to work on the record, and Tommy and I were flying to Chicago all the time in the winter, instead of everyone flying out to Los Angeles in November, December, and January, where it's lovely, and we have we have some of the world's greatest recording studios out there. And from my perspective, there was one moment where Tommy and I met up, went to LAX. I was carrying a hard shell bass drum case full of snare drums and bass drum pedals that weighed a ton. Even for whatever the 29-year-old I was at that time, to lug around. Maybe I was 30, whatever, same thing. Um, and we got in a rental car. We're driving in a blizzard. We check into the cardboard inn, whatever motel that's near Dennis's, and we're supposed to be there at 7. So we stop at a Burger King, and we're the only two people in this sad Burger King. They're playing Christmas music, and all the Christmas decorations are up, and we have like our smashed chicken sandwiches that suck. That's like the Michael Douglas movie. Like, this doesn't look like the picture. So we're sitting like, what the hell are we doing here? Why
Yeah.
aren't we in Los Angeles? In the Hollywood Hills, looking at the palm trees, making music that way. Why are we here? Because he wouldn't get on an airplane and go. So I could tell that those were the things that were happening. But again, I was along for the ride. I'm quite happy to be making music with anyone. But the decisions that were made were theirs, and weren't. I wasn't any part of it.
Yeah. Do you think that that door is pretty much closed at this point?
I mean, look,
Never say never, right? That I know that. Yeah.
I think so, but again, it's not my door to talk about. I mean, I know that Tommy and JY are happy human beings with the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so it's again, um, if you'd asked me if I would have done my own record, no. If you'd asked me there'd be a whole year that we stayed at home, no. I mean, I can't predict anything.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean.
Exactly. Yeah. So you've been now in the band like almost 25 years, right? Long
Mhm.
time. Did you think it was ever going to be that long, or has this been a pretty surprising, successful ride for you?
Like I said, when the 1996 tour ended, I never thought I'd see those guys again. I knew my drums were going to be delivered in a couple days, and um, the last show was in Chicago. I lived in Chicago after the after show party. Hugged everyone goodbye, grabbed my clothes out of the wardrobe, threw it in my car, drove home, and walked in. I had an apartment in Lincoln Park at the time, and I walked in, and it was like when you leave and you go do a gig, and then you come back at 3 o'clock in the morning. I came back at 3 o'clock in the morning, except I'd been gone for 4.5 months, and it was like, did that just happen? Like, here I am, here we are, back where it all started. And this is a true story. I talked about this on my first DVD. Um, the following Saturday night, after playing the Rosemont Horizon, which was my dream venue to play, and that's where we recorded and filmed Return to Paradise. I saw everyone there: The Who, Genesis, blah blah blah, Van Halen. Um, the next week I was in a tuxedo playing a wedding with a band, a great corporate party band with killer musicians that I played in for a few years before being in Styx. And I'm standing out in front of the place called Cafe La Cave on Mannheim Road, down the street from the Rosemont Horizon, and Metallica was playing that night. And I'm watching all the cars, go into the parking lot, and guys with the orange cones waving in the traffic and beacon lights in the sky. And I'm like, hmm, wasn't I playing there last Saturday night? And like, here I'm in a tuxedo, I'm about to play a wedding. You know, that's that's a career in showbiz. Ups and downs. But the reality was, you could look, oh, he's playing a wedding. Well, I was getting paid. And I was playing music with great musicians. It was gonna be killer. Yeah, as a wedding. But I'd rather do that than going like, "Hi, could I interest you in some life insurance?"
Yeah, exactly. Yep, yep. So you mentioned that really special show before, and my next question was like, you guys have played a lot of shows over the years. Is there a couple that were like really extra special, like those magical nights that you can remember and you always kind of think about?
Um, yeah, I mean, I'm very fortunate. I mean, out of I've probably played. I'm guessing 1,800 shows or so with the band. There's going to be a couple special nights in there. There better be.
And there should, yeah.
You know, um, the first show after 9/11 in Wichita, Kansas. That was an emotional event. Um, the cool thing about having this job is I get to see friends and family and meet heroes and have them at gigs. It's a charmed life if you're open to it and you accept that. Um, so playing music for heroes of mine is crazy. Having all my friends at some one point or another and people that live in another city, I mean, it's crazy. So there's a lot of memorable things that they may not make excellent stories in a setting like this, but it's sort of this giant Jackson Pollock painting in my head of those experiences. I mean, I could say like, gee, Red Rocks is beautiful to play, and so's the Gorge. And um, well, here's one thing, and I always cite this. 5 years ago, something like that, we played some sort of like county fair on the Illinois Iowa border. It was like near the Mississippi River, and we pull up and it's like this old racetrack from 1932, and porta potties and little uh, um, uh, the dressing rooms were like little campers, and it you know look, sometimes you show up and you're like, oh, boy, it's a rough one today. You know, now that seems like the Four Seasons in Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Yep.
But you show up and you're like, okay. Well, there was like 10,000 people there, and they were crazy, and a younger audience, and chicks on their boyfriends' shoulders, and it was amazing. And we got off stage, and I go to Lawrence like, that was friggin', and I did not expect that. That was awesome. And Lawrence goes, I'm asked at every interview, what's your favorite venue to play? Red Rocks, whatever. He goes, that's my favorite gig to play. Something like that. And that's really true. Danville, Iowa, or something like that. Wherever the gig was, I can't even really remember, but I remember that experience, and it's true. You're like that. It doesn't get any better than that, and it doesn't have to be at Madison Square Garden or the LA Forum to get something that you just completely takes your breath away.
Yeah, well, it's all about connecting with the audience, right? And you can do that at the Garden. You can do that at a 2,000 seat, hall somewhere out in the middle of nowhere. It's just a matter of where that vibe is just the best, right?
You can do it in a field in the middle of Nebraska. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. And you guys too have played with a lot of really cool bands, all these package tours and things like that. And you mentioned before, like you've gotten to meet and hang out with a lot of your heroes. I mean, any special bands that you guys have toured with, shared the stage with, that are really mean a lot to you, that you really, really enjoyed not only being around them, but watching them play, and that sort of thing?
Pretty much just every one of them. Like the guys in Def Leppard are just great guys. uh, Tesla, and I knew Troy Liketa from. I met him in like 1992. You know, and that we'd been in each other's orbits from just making friends of being at a club one night. Um, we've always had fun with REO Speedwagon. Journey was a fun one for me because they were such a huge band for me growing up. And Steve Smith, if I had to choose one guy who's, maybe the most important, it'd be him. And even though Steve wasn't playing drums and Dean was, great, he was playing in 2003, but, I'd kind of forgotten a little bit. And I remember, we played before Journey and I'd poured myself a heroic solo cup of something and was feeling quite happy and by the side of the stage. And, Neil Schon was playing a guitar solo and I was like, oh, that's right. I friggin' love you. I totally forgot about that. Like, yes, you're the dude that does that. So that was a thrill. We've always had fun with the guys in Foreigner. Bad Company was really fun in 2001. I got to be really great friends with uh, Dave Bucket Colwell and Rick Wills, and we were kind of, the three of us were doing a lot of hanging on that tour, and it was just fun because I've always been sort of an Anglophile, and hanging out with two guys with English accents, and none of us were afraid of a beverage. Just great stories and a bunch of laughs. It was fantastic.
Yeah, very cool. And yeah, you guys did that tour. I think I saw you guys in Yes, I think, right?
Oh yeah, well
Years
oh
ago.
God, that's another one. Had a blast with those guys, and the funny thing about some of the English bands is, and this was not the case with Def Leppard. Well, there was a little bit of an icebreaker with those guys. Something that we've always done when we do like a summer tour, um, especially if it's a band that we've never really worked with, and I'll use Yes in this instance. Yes, they were very nice. They're very cordial, but there wasn't like this brotherhood feeling because a lot of the English bands still have this. This is our gang.
Yeah.
You're a rival gang, and hello, chitty chat and boom, and then we just care about our show and we kind of want to destroy you, and they have that thing where we've always kind of had this inclusive thing, like welcome to the REO Speedwagon. If stuff's going good for you, it's going good for us. Going good for us, it's going good for you. It's the genre, it's whatever it is. Like, this is all, hey, isn't this great that we can do this? That's always been our feeling. So with Yes, we had a night off somewhere. I want to say Boise. And we said, hey, we're having a double band and crew dinner. And we get a place and we get either a private room, or for that, it's a lovely night, so it's outdoors. And that's a night for everyone to sit and be with each other, have a few cocktails or whatever, and get to know each other. And sort of from that point on, that's when the hangs and the arms around, that started to happen. And it was the same thing with Def Leppard, and we took them to dinner, and they said, in all our years, no one ever invited us out to dinner.
Wow.
So
It's good you guys took that upon yourselves to go ahead and do that kind of icebreaker, right? Yeah.
I'm really, really proud of the human beings that make up our band and our crew, because everywhere we go, and I hear this all the time from the lady in the yellow security jacket or whomever, someone at catering. You guys are the nicest group of people, and I hear that time and time and time again, and it makes me feel proud that we go there and we leave that impression. We leave that impression with the audience, hopefully, and we leave that impression with the promoters, um, and just the people, because they're human beings. The people that are cleaning up our dressing room or sitting outside looking at nothing, and no book, no monitor for 7 hours, making sure no one gets back there. Like, that's their job. So if you're like, you stop and hey, how's it going? Does that kill you?
Yeah,
You know, just to stop for 30 seconds or a minute and chat with someone. So that's how we conduct our business.
well, it's a human thing to do, right? And when you really look
Not
at it,
always.
No, exactly. I wish more people did that, right? But at the end of the day, it's like we're all just kind of doing our thing. You guys are making a living just like everybody else, and we have to kind of interact with the rest of the world just the way we should do as human beings. So, but yeah, not everybody does that. That's the shame of it all. So kind of want to talk a little bit about kind of the band's music and kind of like legacy in the eyes of like the general public. So for myself, so I've been following Styx, loving the music of Styx for well over 40 years. I'm in my mid 50s, and I can remember being a little kid and totally grooving on Cornerstone and Pieces of Eight and Grand Illusion, all those albums. And you guys kind of do a little bit of everything. To those who really understand your music, I mean, you guys rock hard. You always deliver memorable, melodic pop hooks housed within these really cool songs. There's a prog rock side to you that kind of always rears its head every so often. And you see all these aspects on all of your albums. Do you think that maybe being that kind of jack of all trades band that kind of does a little bit of everything has helped you or hurt you like over the course of your career? Because you've got folks that are like, and I talked to a lot of people about Styx and have throughout my life. There are some people that are like, Styx, all they do is write those sappy ballads, right? Like Babe and The Best of Times. That's not the majority of what you do. Then there's the folks that are like, they followed you from the beginning and they just love that early hard rock, prog and boogie sound that you guys did in the 70s. And then there are the people who really just like Styx for the radio hits, right? So you've got these like three buckets of listeners who enjoy the music of Styx for different reasons. Is that ever a challenge for you and the band trying to understand your audience and kind of which place they come from? Or is that you just kind of take it all as a whole and you're going to get all that regardless?
I mean, look, it's nice to be known for something. And again, they sold 30 plus million records before I ever darkened their door. So, um, it's having hits is a wonderful problem to have.
It sure is.
And trying to sculpt a set list where you have maybe 8 or 9 songs that you absolutely have to play, and then you only have a couple choices that to go for deeper cuts or other lesser known hits. That's a wonderful position to be in, and I don't take that for granted at all. So, um, you know, for someone who just thinks of Styx as Babe and Mr. Roboto, those have been 2 songs that have, successful as they were, are also, swords of Damocles that is hung over the band's head in perpetuity.
Yeah.
And maybe that's all someone would know. Very much like you might say Phil Collins and they think Sussudio, and you go, what? They're Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, the Peter Gabriel era. There's a whole thing. And it's okay. They just didn't bother to hunt and know more about it, or they missed it, and whatever. That's life. That's okay. There's bands whose entire body of work I've missed 51 years on the planet. So that's just how it goes. So those are good problems to have. I mean, look, when it comes right down to it, any band that was out in the 60s, 70s, and 80s that was on actual vinyl and had one hit, that band can play shows right now, even if it's on a festival of like a 70s fest or whatever. If you have one hit,
just to hear that one song, they'll sit through a whole set just to hear that one big song.
But that also means not only are you known for one song, that means there are thousands of people that sat with that record on their lap, looking at the artwork, reading the liner notes, having those hooks being sunk into you in the headphones, and they're fans because of having had that experience. In the world of CDs, and now music is just stuff that you can conjure out of the air by asking your app or your whatever, by, hey, play this. Music it doesn't mean anything. And there's playlists. So if you really think about how many bands can put together a career of records, late 90s, mid to late 90s on, that can still really do shows, it gets thinner and thinner because they weren't fortunate to be in the era where people put on headphones and looked at the artwork and looked for hidden meanings in the lyrics and da 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 da. And that's when you become a fan of the band. I love this. I love this. I want more, and I want to see this movie again and again and again by putting the headphones on. So, um, to be, having to have spent the last 25 years with a band that did that for millions of people and had cool artwork and things that, when you see the covers of those records, or you see the Styx logo, it means something to you.
Yeah.
That's something money can't buy. uh, when someone, there's a a company in the industry that, in the drum industry, that changed their logo, and I had an issue with it because you have a logo that means something instantly when I sees it. That's that is identifiable. You could see it. You could see someone on the Tonight Show, and you could see that logo and the symbols, and you know what it is. Why change that? That is a giant thing that money can't buy. So, and that's what we have with the Styx logo.
Yeah, yeah. It's the logo, it's the brand. I mean, it's why album covers, I buy the shirts. I mean, that's what it's all about. So do you have any favorite song that you like to play live? And is there a song from the catalog that you guys don't play live that you would love to?
To answer that last question, no. I think we've touched on pretty much everything that I've wanted to do, and I tried to do that when we did this 18 song medley that I arranged, that we did from 2003 to 2006, and then a bunch of those songs ended up being in the set. We're learning the full version, so we've done a lot of that. As far as a favorite song, excuse me, I always love playing "Fooling Yourself." So one of my favorite Styx songs. It's really the song that, when I heard the Grand Illusion for the first time, I'm like, okay, I'm in with these guys. Um, Great song, great melody. Um, a difficult song for being something that was, a radio hit.
Yeah.
Starts out 12/8, 4/4. The keyboard solos in 7/4. The kind of Salisbury Hill type 7/4 that the layperson doesn't even know that it's in four. uh, uh, Back to four, and ending in 12/8 with the prog keyboard solo. But it's still kind of an up, happy song,
It
which
is.
is a very difficult thing to do. Writing up positive songs is a very difficult thing to do without it being like, gee, isn't this great? And the sun is shining, and it sounds like that. To write a positive song that doesn't sound like a cheeseball thing like that is a extraordinarily difficult thing to do.
Yeah. And Tommy's very good at
A master at it.
it. He's very good at it. Yeah, as far as like songs that you don't get to hear often. I mean, I remember seeing you guys when you did the Grand Illusion Pieces of A tour up in Albany, New York at the Palace Theater. And I had never seen Castle Walls played live. And I was like, this is like the greatest night ever, because that's like one of my favorite songs from that album. I still keep hoping one of these days that I'll go see you guys and you'll pull out Man of Miracles, but we'll
It's
see.
funny. I never had any of the Wooden Nickel records. I
They're
don't I
really
don't know
good.
any of that stuff at all, and people are like, they're shocked, like it's sacrilege. Like, you don't know it's lifting the song. Like, no, I didn't have the records. I sort of started. Uh, well, we had the 45 of Lady, um, and then really is when Grand Illusion came out, and then went back and got Equinox, and got all the subsequent records, and were along for the ride, like 77 on. But any of the Wooden Nickel stuff, I don't even know that I've heard any of that stuff.
Yeah, it's worth checking out. I'm a big fan of Man of Miracle. Serpent is Rising is great, but Equinox and Crystal Ball are both really really cool albums. In fact, Ballerina would be another dream song I would love to hear you guys do live. But yeah, there's so many good songs in the catalog. So
We did Sweet Mademoiselle a handful of times, and though it was fun to play, from my perspective, maybe speaking out of school here, I don't think it landed with the audience. I think it got kind of a lukewarm
hmm,
thing. So again, when you're in a band that has hits, if you go too far into the deep tracks, depending on the venue, depending on, because you would tailor a set list on a hot summer night outdoors differently than you would at 2 hours in a theater with red velvet seats.
Sure.
Or, you know what I mean? Like, so the venue can also dictate what would be appropriate to play.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where do you dig in the deeper tracks,
Yeah. Yeah, you could probably play a much different set in like New York City than you would out in Wichita, Kansas, right?
No, actually, I beg to differ because the people in Wichita, Kansas deserve the same show that the people in New York City get. But the Beacon Theater might be a different vibe. Maybe something like pulling out Man in the Wilderness or Castle Walls or something from one of the mellower songs from the Mission would work better there than it would on a hot summer night in like a festival where REO Speedwagon played before us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or Foreigner came out with just like 10 radio hits that and then you got to follow that. You don't want to go into the deep tracks, if you're doing a show like that with another band.
Yeah, exactly. If it was just a night of Styx, you can do that, right?
Yeah, and there's so many variables. I mean, people go like, "Oh, I went to see Styx. They only played 90 minutes." Well, that's the casino. If it was a casino gig, which casino gigs are awesome gigs, by the way. I mean, like they used to have this negative connotation, like, "Oh, they're playing casinos." Like, gee, all the casinos I play, I'm looking at posters of Sting and Seal and Steely Dan, has-beens, right? You know what I mean? They're great gigs, and they take care of you. They feed you. They give you kick-ass rooms. They're great, but the casinos want 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Why? You're cannon fodder. It doesn't matter who's in the room that night. They want the people after 90 minutes. Now go out and spend your money at the tables.
Yeah.
That's the reason for the season of the casino gigs. So they don't want 91 minutes. They'll take 89 minutes, but they want 90 minutes, and that's what.
And don't the casino gigs usually start a little earlier and end a little earlier? Like it's usually you're done way before 1:00 or 11:00, right?
Oh yeah. They're very often 7:00 hits or 8:00 hits.
Yeah, I remember because I think the last casino show I saw was in Atlantic City, and it was Whitesnake, and I'm pretty sure that was done by 10:00, if I'm not mistaken, pretty early. Because they want you out gambling and doing all sorts of other stuff. So speaking of casino dates, so you guys were scheduled to play in Monticello at the Raceway at the new casino up there. I think right before the pandemic. Did that actually happen, or was that one of the canceled dates? I think this was this past March.
Yeah, because that would have been the Eastern Seaboard run, and we were going to do the Mission in at the Beacon.
Beacon, yeah.
And we're going to do the Mission at in DC at the Warner.
Okay.
So yeah, that whole thing was blown up.
Bob, yeah, okay, all right. Well, Todd, I got one last question for you here. Can't let you go without talking about gear. So, what types of drums you playing on in the studio and live in recent last couple of years and up until today? What kind of stuff are you enjoying these days?
Well, I've been playing Pearl drums for 20 years now, and this is a Masterworks kit with the studio recipe shells, which is a maple gum combination with a black limba veneer and gold-plated hardware all the way around. I have a similar kit with a slightly different stain on the black limba for the Styx rig, and that whole rig is plated in rose gold, which is I believe the second kit ever done rose gold. I have the first, which is the Styx rig that one replaced. Pearl drums, Sabian cymbals, Remo drum heads, ProMark drumsticks with my signature model right here, the 330Ws. Audix microphones, beverage holder by Kentville Drums, Australia. Luxury wood accoutrement stick holders by Artisan Customs. And that's pretty much it. That's the rig back there, and then the snare drum collection behind me.
Cool, very nice. It all looks great. Love all the colors and everything. Nice stuff.
Oh, it's pretty, like little candies and stuff. I want to taste each and every one of them.
So I want to thank Todd Sucherman for coming on the show today and spending some time with us. We greatly appreciate it. Make sure you go check out his brand new album called Last Flight Home. Available all the usual suspects, right? All the places where you get music from.
Pretty much, yes.
Sounds
How's
good.
that? Oh, he sold that. Great.
There you go.
Yeah, but toddsucherman.com is really the best place because that way no other outlets take half of it.
There you go. Yeah, that's make sure you do that, everybody. Go check it out. And we'll be waiting patiently for the new Styx album and hopefully tour coming up in 2021. So everybody visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. For Todd Sucherman, I am Pete Pardo. See you all later on. Take care.
Stay safe.